So welcome once again to the second part of this animation video. We are once again with our expert.
My name is Peter Mukiibi, and I'm glad to be here. I'm a co-founder at Admire Motion Pictures. Admire has been in existence for 13 years, and yeah, we are still here and we're still going strong.
So Peter, tell us how you were introduced to animation. How did you get into this field?
Yeah, it's been my life for as long as I can remember. When I was a little boy, I really enjoyed watching TV. But what fascinated me the most, aside from movies with people shooting guns and things like Sound of Music, where it's like a musical, I was so fascinated by news, especially on CNN, and how you would have like a globe wiping across the screen, or you would have
breaking news.
Exactly,
CNN,
or you would have like the weather forecast, but with that element of actual rain in the studio. And I was so fascinated by that. I was like, how do they do this stuff? I want to grow up and do it. So even when my friends were rushing to watch the other things on TV, I was always rushing to watch news. Not that I was so interested in news, but I just love the visual aesthetic. So then my journey started in trying to discover how can I get into doing that stuff. And as I went through my primary and secondary school, I used to draw a lot. I loved art, but not necessarily that you have to know art to to be an animator. I know some animators who
cannot draw.
They can't draw to save their lives, but they're amazing animators. So that's how my journey went. And then even when I was done with my school, I always looked out for studios where I would work and get the opportunity to animate. So when you want something, no one hands it to you. You kind of have to desire it and then push yourself to learn it, practice as much as you can, then you can become better as you go.
What are the principles of animation?
Principles of animation. So animation, I think, has what you call like a Bible, and you kind of have to follow this Bible for you to be able to achieve what you call a good animation, an animation that is marketable, that is believable, and that is sellable. So this Bible has so many principles, but maybe I'll just touch on a few of them. So you find that there are principles like exaggeration, whereby if Tom sees something that is scary or shocking, his eyes will pop out,
and then he jumps like 100 feet in the air.
Exactly. So that is one of the principles of animation, where you exaggerate certain motions in order to get, again, it's all about storytelling. So if you remember the process, it starts from your story. And if your story requires that at a certain point you need to exaggerate, then you do exaggerate. Then there's another one called squash and stretch, whereby if I throw a ball and it hits an immovable object, that ball will not stay in its form. It will kind of squash a bit and then stretch again.
So it gives it that bouncy, almost like jelly.
So that is usually also referred to as dynamics, whereby you have a certain element of physics in that, So then you have other principles like ease in, ease out. And basically what that means is that your animation kind of takes a curve as it goes and hits a certain peak and then comes back down. And that now gives you a very smooth animation. And that is really used a lot in motion graphics. When you have images coming onto the screen, you want them to ease in, and then when they are going away, you want them to kind of
so instead of doing like that, it's sort of like
exactly. And that is just basically, it's not like the other one is wrong, but it's more appealing to visually, when something eases in and eases out.
Sort of when you're doing animation, you're telling a story. And so when you talk about adding character or personality to your animation itself becomes like a piece of the story that you're telling.
True.
So the animation, whether it's a ball or something, it's a character.
Exactly. That is so
cool.
Yeah, but yeah, there's timing.
Yeah.
Timing is now when you decide, okay, how long is it going to take for my character to move from this point to that point, you know, and depending on how fast or slow they are, that will now determine your animation. I don't know if you saw, there was this animation on TV where it had a sloth. Sorry, it was a film where it had a sloth and...
Zootopia.
Yes.
Yes, Zootopia.
And the amount of time it took for that sloth to make a movement was just gripping, you know, in terms of storytelling, you know. Yeah, but then you will also have animations whereby, you know, you have things literally popping all over the screen. I think animations like there's this one with the duck. What is it called?
There's Over the Hedge, where like the guy drinks an energy drink and then just
yes. Sonic is quite fast, you know. So that's called timing. You know, how much time do you want to give your animation to last on the screen, and then once you've made that decision, then and it supports your story, then you go ahead and do it.
So how is animation used in everyday life?
Nowadays we use phones a lot.
Yeah.
And these phones, if you see the companies that are creating the operating system, they've figured out how to implement animation within, so that when you touch an icon, it has a certain bounce to it, or it animates in, animates out, you know. Things like that. So aside from the traditional TV and film where we are used that animation only does films and motion pictures, it's also used a lot in technology. So you find that, you know, things like AI, you know, I think that would be more of your area, in robotics. All these use principles of animation to help them build believable but also realistic movement. So you find that if a car is a self-drive car, you know, there's a certain keyframe. So there's something in animation called keyframes, whereby you set point A and set point B, and they both have different values. So this is now what drives your animation. And it's the same thing that is being used in self-driven cars, whereby there are certain keyframes that this car is supposed to move within, you know, and then that's what gives it the animation to move like where it's supposed to go, you know. So animation is a very, very wide thing. VR, there's virtual reality. That's a good one, you know, whereby all you have to do is put on these goggles and then enter a certain world. Now this world has virtual reality elements that are not necessarily there in the real world, but you're interacting with them through these goggles, and they're being animated to make you feel a certain way or react a certain way. So you find that you can put on goggles and play lawn tennis with someone who isn't really there.
So like you're seeing this person in this screen, but they're not in front of you, they're inside. And that's actually really interesting, because the first time that you spoke to us, you mentioned creating animation and it's fixed and people are watching it. But now people are interacting with this animation, which means that there's a way you can get animation from that design stage to now, like video games and mobile applications, where people now begin interacting with the animation, and it's not really a fixed movement, but you control how the character moves.
So animation is really broad. You know? It's not something you can exhaust, but it pretty much shares the same principles everywhere, and it can be used in so many ways.
Awesome. So you know how like at the end of movies, especially animated movies, there are credits, and there's like a very long list, and if you sit and watch, you see all sorts of roles, and you're like, what do these people do? Can you tell us like a rough breakdown of the kind of jobs or careers that happen between when someone says, I want to create this animation, to the time you sit in a cinema and look at it?
So remember we talked about animation being wide. And because it's wide, you find that as you grow in your career, you are advised to specialize. Specialize so that you know, you can let the person who loves to draw, and then you can do the coloring. You know, one of the movies I loved so much is Spider-Man. The one that has
Into the
Miles
Multiverse.
Yes. That was amazing because it had so many layers that would create this frame, and it had this depth that hadn't been achieved before, but it just boiled down to artists pushing themselves. So the reason why you have those many credits is that you have some people who are cel shading, what you call cel shading, basically they're applying color. You have people who are illustrating. You have what you call animators. Now these are the ones who do the different drawings. And then you have actually like now the experts who, so there's this principle of animation that I didn't tell you about, whereby you can do what you call straight animation or pose to pose. Now with straight animation, when you start a drawing, you draw the next one and the next
just keep
one.
going.
Yes, but then there's also what you call pose to pose, where all you have to do is draw a certain pose and then the next one, and then other artists will come in and fill in the in-between.
So the expert says this is the first scene, this is the scene 5 seconds later, and then other
the juniors,
guys come, the
now
juniors,
come
the
and
trainees,
yes,
the interns.
exactly. So you find that those poses are now what really determines what an animation is like. And there's one out there whereby the expert was doing the poses for Tarzan, and it was so amazing the way he posed him, that the guys who are doing the in-betweens had so much fun, you know. So so you find that there are all these things. There's what you call rotoscoping, whereby you have to paint out things. Now imagine you have a frame and you need to paint out trees, you know, maybe something was passing and the director says, I want that car out, or I want to remove that number plate. All that is animation, you know. So you start to paint out frame by frame and maybe stretch things a little bit again for, you know, believability and exaggeration. So
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
And you haven't even talked about the people who do the lighting,
the
people who do the sound, the voice artists, the directors, so basically there's just so much opportunity in the world of animation, and you can choose to specialize, which is what people advise the most. But there are some artists who like to try everything until they figure out how their style is. And it can take you a few weeks to do an animation. It can also take you many, many years. Some of the movies that we see have actually been produced for like 5 or more years. So for anyone who's out there watching, how can they get into animation? Like what would it take to develop a career in animation for any student out there watching?
So if you ask any animator out there, they'll tell you it always starts with curiosity. You know, if you're curious enough and you want to jump into it, it always starts from there. So once you develop that love for the technique, and then you start to fiddle around or play around with different softwares or draw things in your books. So you find that in the animation pipeline, there are these guys who are called who develop your characters. Character designers, yes. So you find that if you've been someone who's been drawing a lot in your book, you might be, you know, a character designer out there waiting to be discovered, and you don't necessarily need to animate these characters, but then the animator needs you to draw the character
so they know how it looks.
Exactly, and then they can now animate it. So for the people who are out there and they are really looking towards getting into animation and you're curious about it, what I would say is that go online, go on YouTube and start to look at a few tutorials here and there. And then when you feel like, I think I love this, and you've seen what YouTube is telling you about how to do certain things, then you can go ahead and now start to pursue school, whereby, you know, school is a good thing. You know, it adds, what do you call it? It adds the element of knowing, because sometimes some of us animate when we don't even know we are animating.
That's true.
People who do drama. So all that is like animation. And if you see movies nowadays, they have what you call these studios where you wear a certain suit and it has little lights, and then you do the poses that you want your character to do, and then those poses are transferred
to the character.
You know, so all that is animation.
So which means that even within animation, you have technology, like you have
exactly
people building electronics components that are used by animators.
Yes, yes. Wow. So you find that Avatar, the way they animated Avatar was by using references for the actual actors, how their faces were moving, and then now they would map that onto the 3D characters that had been created, you know. So yeah, just I would say go on YouTube, try to watch as many videos as you can. Start with the beginners so that it's not very daunting and overwhelming, and then you grow your career or love for it as you go. Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much, Peter. This has been such a fascinating conversation. I really, really hope you've enjoyed this. Please remember that there is so much. It can feel like it's very intimidating, like Peter said, but everyone starts somewhere. And some of the best animations that you've seen are created by people who started off just like you. They basically said, I have this idea, I want to be this thing, let me start from somewhere. And they eventually got there. So it's about perseverance, it's about passion, it's about curiosity. So you can become a fantastic animator, just get started.
True.
Probably we could put out a word and say who can animate the Fundibots logo, and show us what really you can do with this, because
it's a challenge for you.
Yes, it always starts with a character. Once you have something like that, you have a place to start from, and then now maybe you make its eyes move, or you make the thunder do something.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. Yeah. If you do so, please remember to tag us on our social media at Fundibots, and would love to see that.
Great.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's been an honor having you.
Yes, thank you to Solomon, and I've enjoyed this, and looking forward to animating more.
Yeah, fantastic. Hopefully some of your animations will end up on our channel as well.
Yes, why not? Why not?
All right. And thanks for watching, everyone. It's been a pleasure hosting you. Have fun. Bye.
Bye.